Chris, thank you for round two. It was a cluster F yesterday when we actually, what was happening.
Yeah. Yeah, losing connection and all that stuff. So we'll see what happens today, right?
Yep.
Um, the subject matter that we were talking about was releasing, well, uh, how did you put it? Releasing the beast in subtle ways?
Yeah, like de-stressing the beast or pretty
Yes.
much acknowledging it so that it wouldn't be so overwhelming or so cumbersome.
Yes. Which brings up the topic that I was interested in in how. Because people are always like, well, if I let that beast out, that means I'm hurting somebody. And like that's my beast. And it's never really a subject matter of like, don't let him all the way out. Let him see the world so that way he's not stuck in this like little, he's not hidden away. Let him see the world that like everything's okay. Kind of like this like whole thing, like by doing something um sometimes obscure, sometimes um uh small even. Like something baby steps usually when you like tell a man you're like, yeah, you just got to do things step by step. But like if I would to be mentally stuck somewhere and then I'd be like, so you want me to somehow get out of this depressive mode and just be happy? Yeah, that's a big step if you just put it in that way. You can't just make a step like that. It's impossible. Like you're sitting there and you're brain locked and you're just like looking at things. You're just like, I want to end my life. I just want to be done with this. I want the world to know I'm done with this. And I want it to be gone. How do you baby step out of that? Right. It's, and that's the thing. Like, you can't just be like a big, huge step and then, well, I'm out of that mindset. You have to baby step out because if you, what were we saying?
I was gonna say it's like the baby step out, and I understand what you're saying when you're actually looking for just a little bit of release, a way to de-stress. And I actually, when I look at this, it's being comfortable while we're in a good spot to actually discover or or pretty much just make it clear about what is the monster trying to say within. It's more of how do I give it breath? How do I give it air? So that I already know I'm in a
Yes.
good spot instead of waiting for it to say, you know what, I have full control over you and I'm going to just enjoy myself because I'm finally free.
Yes, exactly. And it's all about balance, is what the Darshan is, what was really beneficial for me. Um, I would, either work out, I would take 15 minutes of my morning or something like, so we start this podcast at 7:30 in the morning and you're like, yeah, after breakfast. And I'll be like, yeah, after breakfast. Because while I'm in breakfast, it's a good 15 minutes. I just put my phone away and I just like stare at something and I just kind of eat my breakfast and just like let myself just like go down that dark rabbit hole in my brain, knowing it's got a time limit. Now, this may not work for everybody because some people will lock themselves in that and they'll remember something and then they'll lock it and then that re-traumatizing, right? So you got to be careful with this technique. It's the technique of letting my brain go down there and then letting it come back to like, or sometimes it's down there and be like, this is comfortable, let's kind of, we could work with that. It depends on my mood, it depends on this, so it's not always just like one way and then that way, or it's not just a linear path, it's not just one straight path. It's ebb and flow. Every day is a different day to where you're going to do something different, you know even if it's the same routine, you're going to the same job, same thing, talking to the same person, there's still some different, it's still a different day. So that good 15 minutes, um letting your brain kind of dabble in that dark place a little bit, but realizing you're okay. And then afterwards, let's say if you did go really dark, you can do some really silly things to get you out. Now, what I mean by silly is anything. Like a baby step can kind of mean like in any category that's comfortable to you. I go to the garage when I work when I woodwork. I sometimes dance in between steps to get to my next machine. Is I'll kind of like I'll bust a move. Like I'll like so I purposely be silly to relax my body instead of like this kind of constant like locked in position because my thoughts like put me there. But I'll like relax, I'll roll my shoulders and I'll kind of swing my arms when I'm going there. Or, you know, when I'm going to the toilet and I take a crap, I watch, funny dog videos. Like, um I um
Are they also
there's
pooping?
sometimes
Okay.
I mean, why not like the irony of it all? Yeah, absolutely. There was a dog. One time, me and my friend were walking down the street. We heard this, like, we heard this dog just screaming, right? And we thought this dog was in trouble. Like, we were like, oh, turn a corner and run to it. And the owner was there, just standing there with his leash, just kind of like this. And the dog was crapping. And we are like, what? And the guy's like, yeah, he's constipated. And the dog didn't know how to handle it. So it's just howling while it's pooping. And the immature side of me, even though the dog is in pain, but I couldn't help but to be a little dumb and childish, but laugh because it was just a noise that I did not expect and an image I did not expect, and allow myself to laugh. Like, um, you know, I'm sure when you were overseas that you laughed over things that nobody would ever understand why you would laugh at them.
You know, speaking about that and actually saying something that you were not advised or aware, and I have not really thought about this thought for a very long time. I would actually watch war movies and I would start laughing, especially with the firing.
Yeah.
And for a while, I used to find it comical because I was like, this is not war. This is not how people lose their life. And it's like, it's very quick. It is like absent. It is almost like a void. But not to go into such a dark place, but you were saying when you were actually relaxing, and when I was thinking about when you were talking about the dog and the distraction of how you were able to get yourself back into the moment. And in a lot of therapy, they'll call it mindfulness, and other people will call it grounding. And so people will use things like tapping or EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is called
Yeah,
tapping.
the EMDR as well.
EMD with the where you moving your eyes back and forth, where you are after you gain trust with a therapist, you're going back to a time and using your body and using your eyes and changing the way that it actually connects back and forth to the brain. And a lot of what my experience, which was only a couple of times with EMDR, but I did more other evidence based practices as well, was trying to be kind to the old self. For me, it was actually becoming kind to Will. And I don't know if they focus with you, Chris, about being kind to Chris, but it's kind of difficult. Knowing that you're in a safe spot, and this is kind of where I was hoping you would get into, where it's how the different modalities of therapy, where you knew you were in a semi safe place to be able to pretty much, I don't want to say just snap back in here, and but to also acknowledge the past and start to live a little bit forward. But back to you.
Yeah. So let's go off of that because I actually think that this is a very important thing for me. Is I um I still fight almost every day with thinking I'm a loser. And the thing is like I can have awards for things I've done, or I can have a family that just like supports me and I support them. Um, it is one of those things that like in my imagination, how I perceived how I was supposed to go is one thing that like I fight with all the time because I do have drive, and I'm a silly guy. I bounce back and forth. Um, I and my drive overwhelms me to where like I'll forget to eat for a day because I'm so busy building something. And then like I think I said this maybe yesterday, I can't remember. It'll be 3 o'clock in the morning that I'm building something, and my wife is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, is it dinner time?" You know? Um, s- the reason why I bring that up is because I love going forward and pushing forward and stuff like that. And if I'm not pushing forward, I feel like a loser. And how do you know, like combat a thought process that is every day, even like on a good day, I have this. Like this is an everyday thing. Um, and
So I kind of want to jump in there real quick, and it's just I think I might have mentioned this to you, but I mentioned this before, which is this guy. He was a kind of like a philosopher. His name was Alan Watts, and we spoke about that when we first met each other. And
we do. We both like
when
Alan Watts.
when he was talking about how the Western society is, if we're not moving, we are failing or we are becoming stagnant. And the book, The Way of the Zen, that he wrote, is that's why Americans have to sit in lotus pose, or Western culture has to sit in lotus pose when they meditate. But over here, over in the Eastern side, they can actually do walking meditation. And I kind of wanted to jump in because you, how many guys are just based, not even just say Americans, but how many dudes, they base their whole life on production and what are they giving? And you just said before the awards. Well, here you get this, here you get that. You earned your black belt, you earned this, you earned that. But in your mind, hey, I'm a piece of shit because how many guys or how many people are really been taught to say, you know what, man, I earned this. Let me just sit with this the moment. The next thing what we hear is, I guess I have to level up because I guess I have another dragon to slay that's going to be even harder than this.
Yes, I agree with that. And that's the thing, like, and it's so much in my brain to not, feel like one and stuff like that, even regardless of this, even the forward movement and stuff like that. Yeah, we just had a conversation about yesterday to today, for you, Will, um, and how you were just like, man, no, it was a busy day. And like usually you were telling me that you like to define it by a productive day, but you're like, no, this one was just a busy day, you know? And I like that we had this debate about you kind of have to go backwards. And we pretty much just traded places. Um, that you were like, I usually have forward, but it feels like it was all stagnant and just too busy to even catch a breath. But we have to have those days to be able to realize that, you can have a really slow, like do nothing day, and you're like, why is it I feel like it was a very productive day? It's because we both agreed that it was just what we needed at the time. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it was unproductive because you were stagnant. In fact, that was productive because you were giving yourself room to breathe. Um, yeah. So to go back to the loser topic, it is a daily thing that I fight with, yes. But I feel like I have to fight something still sometimes because that's where my comfortability is. And being able to choose my fight helps me. Um, it is a hard fight for me, and everybody has their hard fight, and that one's mine. Is if I get to choose my fight, that means sometimes I get to choose the grounds where I'm fighting on. Um, and so if I get to choose the grounds, that means I got a higher ground, I got advantage points, and so it took me a long time to hike to get to that point, and it's those baby steps. Like it's those small dumb things. It's watching funny, like it's the watching funny videos. It's listening to my kid's story that was about how he picked his nose and now his nose bleeds, and laughing with him, and then how he, when he walks up the stairs and then like every single step he farts, I'm like, how did you pull that off? And then we both just sit there and drool laughing and stuff like that. And those are the baby steps. It's not this like, well, tomorrow I'll have a better day. It's the point where you allow yourself to do these little dumb, tiny steps, and enjoyment.
Chris,
What's up?
how hard was it for you to be able to enjoy the farts with your kid? How
It took
hard
it
was?
took it
Go
took a
ahead.
long time. Yeah, it took a long time because at first, like I don't know what it was, but like it was just like because I was so brain locked that I couldn't enjoy anything, and so I would take the enjoyment away from other people around me. And it was just I was a black hole of, like stuff like that. And so I'm glad you pointed that out because yeah, bringing that up, it did. And the thing is, like, I was not showing him what a man is at that point. I mean, to tell you the truth, like, and then when I laugh with him about farts and stuff like that, that's the most manly thing that we do, like together. It's not like he's starting to take rugby now. And he's like, yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, I got this bruise and this bruise and this bruise and this bruise. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. Did you have fun? You know, those are the man moments that like we both share together. It's this like, oh, good. I'm glad to see that you're getting tougher.
No,
Yeah, that's not being tougher. The tougher point was, yeah, I had fun. I made a mistake. I let go of the ball in the forward direction and they got the ball. But you know what? It was pretty cool because then this happened and then, like somebody pulled down my pants when I was tackling him. Like he'll tell me like a silly story. I'm like, this kid, like when you bring up baby steps, like people don't realize that like, well, I'm an adult. It's hard for me to take baby steps. At one point, to get to an adult, I maybe for like 90% of us, we had to be a kid to get there. Um, and if you do kid activities, you realize that there is a little kid that's still inside of you that you were at one point. Meaning, I hope that that translation didn't come off very weird. And if it did, so what?
actually, I talked to you yesterday about my dad, about how he was with my brother as when he was younger. But I usually never get a chance to tell people about how awesome he was when he really lost his mobility, of his mobility. And I say that because, you mentioned about, hey, it's not about being tougher. I went to MCT, which is military, Marine Corps training or combat training. It was over in North Carolina, and my dad and my mother drove down to North Carolina to go visit me. And so, mind you, they drove. I think it was like about 10 hours, 12 hours each way. So I get done with the MCT, and I'm so tired. I remember calling. I usually call him sir, but it was a colonel, and I called him colonel, and I was just totally like tired as shit. And my dad is like, "Hey, I'll drive you to the airport." And so he drove me to the airport, but as soon as I got into the vehicle, out, lights out, tired. My dad got me to the airport to go so I can go fly to California for my next thing for my MOS school. And my dad never guilted me about it. My dad never was upset. He said, I was just glad to have you in my car. And you don't realize like how a person in different stages of their life, depending on where they are in their mental illness, in their own sickness, they can revert back to different parts of it, but they are working towards becoming that individual they want to. And to me, that always stuck with me about what my dad did, which was, hey, you could have been selfish and been like, hey, why did you sleep the whole time? Or why don't you wake up and talk to us? Because we only get to see you X amount of time. But for him, it was more like, Hey, I got you. You feel safe. You're asleep. Good. Sleep.
Yes. And was this a different turn than what he usually is engaged with? How he engages is what you mean?
Say it one more time.
Or did he usually engage with you a different way, or is that his general?
So my dad, when I was like a kid, as a child, he suffered with bad PTSD, and his modalities of escape was gambling and alcohol, and he also had the secondary with actually being physically abusive, especially to my brother Alfie, and where it was that was his escape, and then when he started losing his escapes, he was more confronted with his humanity, which is him, and then he had the opportunity to change. But like a lot of people that have been traumatized, actually, let's share this too. So my grandfather used to go after my dad. My dad used to provoke my grandfather, protect his brothers, and that's it was like a ongoing cycle of how people were. And needless to say, it was interesting because you could see my dad was a protector. He really cared about his kids, but most of the time he was so overwhelmed with what we considered the monster, the beast, that not actually being able to process it. And his generation and people like my dad is the reason I wanted to start this podcast up. He believed that if we went to an insane asylum, or not insane asylum, but a psych ward, they're going to hold us against this. If we say we needed help, the white coats were coming, that they're going to put us and lock us up. And I went to a psych ward for a week, and I went to a 13-week residential. And it was one of the best gifts I ever did for myself. But I also was lucky that the VA was able to take care of me and be able to flip the bill because it is not cheap. It's not cheap at all. And but it gave me a huge jump forward on working on my mental health. And it was what I needed for a timeout. But thinking about for a person like yourself, and you're talking about having farts and enjoying it with your kid, or hey, did you have fun instead of him looking at the bruises? Oh, is this making me tough? No, my dad is saying, hey, what about that child inside you? What is the child saying?
Yeah, I exactly. Um, so let me backtrack a little bit about the going to uh, a psychological detention center, or however you like to phrase whichever or whatever is closest to you. Um, so when I was working on a base at JFHQ up in there in Utah, um, literally just sitting there in the front at like a booth, like those dumb guys that let me see your ID, that kind of thing. I think you used the perfect terminology for that job at the time was being a lifeguard at the Olympics. It's it was a ridiculous job. Um, but there were people that I worked with um, that were above my skill levels in every possible way that were meant for the military. But they were suffering, and we would have these intense conversations, and I would enjoy myself. I mean, it would be like a good 8-hour shift of conversations that we would just like have. And there were some that were going to that were going to go back to being reactive, that were going to go try to go back overseas and stuff like that. But they would they wanted to let people know, but they didn't want to let people know that they were suffering, right? It was always interesting to like hear the techniques of how somebody would word around like how like and then like you'd see them just like kind of like just lock down or think about something, and you're just like, okay. And so what I noticed is, I would try to be like, hey, and I would try to reach out, be like, pretty sure it's at the VA, or maybe we could talk and then I can make the phone calls for you, you know. Um, and stuff like that. And they're like, no, I want to go do another deployment and I don't want anything to destroy or get in my way. And so I will not receive help. And yeah, go ahead.
Chris, I will say this, and this is hard for other people to understand. When you're overseas, you feel like you're doing the best job that you possibly can do. It's not just for you, it's actually for your brothers and sisters. And you feel like you're getting pulled out of the game where it's meant to be able to help people, to help your brothers. You feel like you, and I don't say everybody, but there's quite a bit of, if I'm not there, am I abandoning them? If I'm not there, are they going to be able to make it out alive? If somebody dies, is it my fault? And I already been there. I remember the second time when I went overseas, I had to sign a waiver because I was already diagnosed with PTSD, and it was my mindset was like I didn't want somebody else to experience my nightmares. And we could talk about meditation, we could talk about woodworking, but at that point in my life, I never felt so there. I never felt so engaged. And when people are like, "Hey, you can get better," and it's like at that point when that poison is so deep inside you, the mental like with that PTSD, you don't want that poison out of you. It's
Hmm.
almost it's so crazy. It's almost like somebody is going on a really, really big bend of heroin. All of a sudden, you hit them with Narcan. All of a sudden, you ruined my high. You took it out. Now it's a much, much shorter thing where we could talk about the beast. So if I say, Chris, no more beast, and I took it away from you, you'd be at first you'd be like, oh, that's great, and then afterwards you'd be like, no, 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 no. You just took away the thing that kept me safe.
Yeah, you took away half, or if not a good portion or more of me, for sure.
And when you
Mm.
do that, because when I have actually, we spoke about this differently offline, where it's becoming friends with that dark side of you. Because when that dark side is there, it was created, it was fed, it was the dark wolf that was fed to protect you from when you were a child. It was there to protect you as an adult. And when everybody else was not there in your corner, even if they were, that thing was there. That thing was actually watching your back. And what's crazy is to say almost like it's two different people, but it's not. It's the it's that part of you that when people say, "Oh, let's cut it off," no, you don't, because that's so necrotic. But the part I actually say to you or to people is, how do we grow the other parts of your life? Not shrink it, recognize it, not grow it, but grow the other parts. And then the beast knows that it's not being taken away, but the other parts of the life can be grown. Like your pottery has, or your artwork has huge influences of the beast. And it's not only there to be there for violence, it's there to be able to show this is something that is part of humanity as a whole that has been there just to protect us.
It, it is, for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, let's, the, so many directions. My brain is going like this. So, let's say the guys looking that were not looking for help, that needed help on base. I think like somebody finding you, or in your field, is something so useful. I mean, if I would have known more about it too at the time, like, and that's the thing too, like, um, finding more information when you're down low is really difficult because that brain lock is hard. And, you know, I'm hoping that sometimes maybe my baby steps might help somebody other. You know, if I can do something silly, laugh about something highly inappropriate, and it will lessen my shoulders a little bit. And then I can look around this room and I can realize that there's Will's phone number that was sitting there the whole time that I didn't even see to, you know, like I couldn't see it. Um, and hopefully that's the direction that, uh, people can understand that, like, what was helpful for me is like, um, just relaxing, being goofy enough. And I know it sounds like, yeah, just go be goofy, you'll be fine. No, in my days of being goofy, I still struggle too. And like, and guess what? I fail at doing that too. I feel like a loser at times. Times I'll go for like weeks or months or, a few days of not being goofy, of just like my brow just like staring at people like when they walk down the street. Um, and I had to like catch up. I gotta take my 15 minutes. I gotta keep my phone away from my body because it's just a dopamine boost every 2 seconds. Um, you know, sometimes I'll let it out like late at night. I'll go play some video games. I'll play like a tiny bit of Call of Duty for like half an hour to an hour and just like just it's super stupid, but it's like shooting at it's video. And this is where you gotta be careful, like doing something like this. It can be re-traumatizing, obviously, so it's not for everybody, but it does let out a little bit of dumbness, to be able to just you know like a video game style, shooting at people, letting little kids get angry at you and curse at you and the craziest things that they say and just laugh about it. Because, and it's highly inappropriate what they say on there, so I'm not recommending it for everybody because you're gonna be very surprised on the things that they're gonna say. But you're laughing because you're like, I can't believe your age and you're saying that, like, and the thing is, you're laughing about it because you know you shouldn't. Um, and these are things to hopefully get you out of brain lock. And that's the thing, like brain lock is just a thing. It's just it consumes in it. Like you can't feel in it because you can't feel anything. Like you don't know you're in it. You can touch anything, but you can I mean like when I when I'm in brain lock, I had like what was it? A router go halfway through this knuckle and like just kind of take off and a chip on my bone. I'm kind of like, well, I guess I just better just, dress this up and just kind of walk away. And then like, because I didn't care, like feeling didn't matter to me, pain didn't matter to me. I was lost, you know? And then I'll just kind of wrap it up and just be like, all right, put some gauze on it and then just go back to it. Because especially for, you know, men, is we don't feel pain, especially like, guys in our direction, that feeling pain is just something that we don't do. They had that, and I hate this saying because that old, you remember that old like saying, pain is weakness leaving the body?
Oh, that's a Marine Corps saying right there.
Yes, I disagree with that. And I mean, there's so many good things that the military teaches. So many good things. They teach you baby steps. And that's the thing too. Like they literally go through the baby steps with you to be able to even fire a weapon. Even though you know how to work with one. Most people that go into the military already know what they're even holding, but they still go through it just in case for, the guy that doesn't. Um, but that one, I feel like it's its dynamic of conversation is lost. Pain is just weakness leaving the body. That's Let's disregard the pain so we never feel pain. You know?
So, when you say that, another saying comes up. No one's coming to save you. No one cares.
Mm,
So why say anything?
I hate that one.
And oh, do I hate that one. Again, this is why I'm doing this podcast and getting this off the ground. I was at Yellowstone National Park, and I was drinking and I was splitting kindling with a hatchet, and part of my left pointer finger came off with a hatchet. And I was on the phone, and I was like, "Hey, Willie, I have to get off." He was like, everything all right? I said, I just cut off part of my finger. And then I go to my ex and I say, hey, Chris, wake up. She's like, what's up? I was like, you gotta wake up. She's like, why? I said, I have to go get to probably the hospital. I just cut off part of my finger. And I'm whispering this to her. So like so I don't interrupt her sleep and get her too frazzled. It's like I because to me, even something so physical like that, and that was the way I used to feel because no I felt like no one cared. And it was such a dark void. And at the same time, so many people do care. So many people would love for you to be trusted with them, with their hurt, with their pain, so that they don't have to suffer in silence. Like Chris, your body language throughout this whole conversation just dropped back down again from yesterday. Same way, like when we were talking. And one of the first things you said to me when we first met was like, "Hey, I don't have an MOS," and I'm like, "That's okay too, man." I'm like, "This is about guys just actually hurting and actually talking about things." And I know that you and I, we can be able to talk for hours about these type of subjects,
Absolutely.
but we're reaching pretty much almost like an hour and 40 minutes of actually conversation between yesterday and today. The second thing I'm going to say to this is I want to actually ask you for your advice. What would you like somebody to be able to get from this type of conversation? Well, I was shutting it off too quick because I would love to have you back on. The only reason I'm doing that is because people have asked, like, hey, can we try to keep it for about an hour, hour and a half? Everything you say is so important, man. It's you're speaking so much to the choir, and I want to have you on again probably about a month and a half from now, and we're going to jump back into wherever you want to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'll, for to answer that one, yeah, in a month and a half, I'll probably talk about something just as dumb or goofy too. Um, and then to go back to your first question, what people can take from it is I hope anything and everything, I hope everything I put out there is yours, whoever is listening. Um, Nothing is should be owned when it comes to a communication technique or a way how somebody wants to get through life. I hope it just helps one dynamic, if not the category that fits for the person. Hopefully they can hear something that like maybe inspires them, like we talked about in the like yesterday, is allowing yourself to be inspired and allowing yourself to be inspired with just a dumb guy like me on one tiny little dumb thing. Try to go laugh at a fart, you know? Like I hope you like eat some beans, eat a bunch of pickles, and then laugh about your farts, and then give yourself a Dutch oven and drool, laugh, and go to the bathtub. Yeah, go to bathtub and fart as loud as you can and see if you can wake the house up. Um, you know, like do
And
something silly and dumb and surprise somebody with silly and dumbness, and I bet you'll change even the attitude around you to where like you'll be like, whoa, this feels different. Like you actually, and then you'll feel like, and then all of a sudden you'll notice maybe Will's card on your thing or somebody else's or a friend to go drink with or you know something. I hope there's something just small, if not anything, or just something to listen to.
well, Chris, one thing I want to tell you, you're far from dumb. You're very, very far from dumb. I will say that you have had an altered lived experience with life and is actually be able to make you very bright. You can see a multitude of different angles. You're very situational aware. The other thing is that you use humor, sometimes dark humor, to be able to help navigate some tough conversations. And I love how you go back to farting because it is the best, or not to say the best, it is a great tool to disarm a person because not only are they gagging or smelling on it, but now it's like you just hit such a the smell sense brings everybody back to a different part, and then you're having a type of dialogue. It's almost like a reset, and
Yeah.
yeah, like farting with your kids or Dutch ovening your wife or just being you, bringing out that innocence, that part of your life that you wish you were able to focus on more. And I just realized that while we were talking about how when we go back to the infantile, that childlike mindset, it was an area that we wish that we spent a little bit more time with.
Yeah. Um, I have foster sons and it was ripped away from them. So I constantly want to make sure that it grows with them. And because it was ripped away with me, and I hope that when I bring it back into my life, that it does spread and it's like an infection. I want this infection to like just consume the world around me. And then everybody is enjoying something, at least for a small amount of time, just to understand life.
Call it conjunctivitis.
Conjunctivitis. I'm gonna look that one up. I
Oh,
didn't see. I haven't.
that's pink eye.
Oh. Okay, okay. So my buddy, we were in a competition, and he he so he like he gets hit in the stomach, right? Just gets slammed and hit in the stomach, and then he starts peeing out blood. We're like, oh man! So we rush him to the hospital and stuff like that. And so we're all sitting there waiting for the results. I mean, he's peeing out so much blood, and we're all surprised. And then this doctor, I don't know what kind of day he had, but apparently he knew how to interact with people. Because he comes in and he just like he's looking at his chart. He's like, "Man, it shows here that you have vagomagalinitis." And we both just like step back and we're like, "What is that?" Like we were stunned. He would damn near like my buddy was like in his garments on the bed, like he like grabbing his chest. He's like, "Does that mean I'm gonna die?" And like the doctor's like, "No, that just means you have an oversized vagina." And like we're all just sitting there like, what? He was peeing blood. And he's like, no, you just had a little bit of internal bruising. It pees right out and then you're done.
Even the doctor is actually pulling the tradition.
So,
Hey,
yeah, vagomagalinitis. It was,
hey,
it's, so I hope we end on that good one.
I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much for your time, man.
All right.
And